So compound interest is really useful. I've left the formula up here. What we're going to be looking at next is sort of the theoretical limit in some sense of what happens if you keep increasing the number of compounding periods. So you'll recall some of the problems in Chapter 5 talked about continuous compounding of interest. I described it then as essentially if at any point any interest is built up, we roll it in so it starts building up interest of its own. I don't really have time right now to get distracted by describing the process by which it ends up turning into this. So if you have continuous compounding, the formula changes up a bit. So continuous compounding, you're only going to be measuring time in terms of years because you basically kind of let the number of compounding periods fade away. So it ends up looking like this. P times our buddy E from the last chapter, the 2.71828, you get the idea number. R is our annual interest rate, T is the number of years. I usually make a joke about Pert shampoo right here because I don't even know if any of you know that Pert is a brand of shampoo. I don't even know if it still exists, frankly, but rabbit trail. All right, so here's our formula. So we've got a couple of examples floating around. So if we put away $1,500 and we've managed to talk somebody into this continuous compounding scheme, so we've got a p-value of 1,500, a t-value of 15 years, and an r value of 4%. So like we do, that needs to be a decimal. So our future value in that case, we just fill in the blanks. R is 0.04, the t is 15. Again, remember, if you're putting this all into your calculator at once, make sure that you're enclosing this multiplication into parentheses. It'll throw things off if you don't. So when I worked this out, I got 27.33 and 18 cents. Okay, so now the next example, twist things around kind of like we saw before. If we're wanting to make sure we have a certain amount socked away, 35 grand in this next instance. So if our future value we want that to be 35,000, we got 12 years to get there, and our interest rate is 4.5%. So that would be 0.045. Now we fill this in for S in the formula, 12 for T, the decimal for R. The only thing we're looking for is P, the principal, how much we need to put away right now to make this happen. So I'm not going to do the extra set of parentheses here. Like as I've said, if you're putting it in your calculator all at once, if you work out the calculation, you have the 0.045 times 12. Awesome. Works either way. So now when we do this, in order to figure out what P is, we've got to divide both sides by this exponential thing here. 0.045 times 12, I got 0.54 out of that. So okay, so that was what I got. So these two are in fact the same, so they go canceling. And the p-value that I came up with was 20,000. Now I've got to make sure I fit all this in here where it's legible. 20,396 and 19 cents. So I kind of failed there. 20396.19. So, all right. So we don't need quite as much as we did before. That's, in terms of making the interest, because again, we're letting the investment sit a lot longer in addition to the interest thing. All right, so that's a couple of examples down. There's an example in the notes file that I'm leaving for you to work on as an assignment where you compare the amount of, you compare the future values essentially of a continuously compounded investment versus in this instance, it's a quarterly compounding scheme. So same amount, same interest rate. All you're comparing is how often interest gets rolled in, and you see how much that gains you over the course of a 5-year span. So look for that in Moodle. So as it turns out, that type of comparison you would normally probably do just like on a 1-year basis. So now I need to do some erasure before we move on. So on this comparison is what we'll typically hear referred to as an annual percentage yield. If you're dealing with like borrowing, like you'll hear car loans talk a lot about APR. That's the same idea in this instance. So based on sort of a compounding setup, what's the effective, regular interest rate that is getting, simulated by all of this interest compounding? So you have a pair of formulas in the notes file for calculating APY, both if it's a continuously compounded case and if you're doing some sort of periodic scheme. So if, one time per year, if you're talking about something on an annual scale, but then you don't really need an APY, right? Because you're only rolling it at the end of the year. So we've got an example where we want to compare the results of the different compounding schemes for the same interest rate. All that we're changing is the compounding scheme. No, we don't need to know how much we're investing because we're really looking for like a percentage, growth. So in this next example, we're given an R value of 0.05 because we have a 5% annual rate. We're going to be comparing continuous compounding to a monthly compounding setup. So we're eventually going to need an M value of 12 when we work this thing out. So the continuous setup, got worried that I misspelled the word continuous there. So the APY formula for continuous compounding says we take E to our interest rate and minus 1. So we work out E to the 0.05, subtract 1. Again, close up parentheses if you're using a calculator that like automatically puts 1 in right there. So when I worked that out, I got 0.05127 for the continuous compounding setup. So for the monthly one, we kind of need to do a little more work. Because the monthly formula calls for our periodic rate, I. So remember from last time, I is our annual rate divided by the number of times a year it comes up. That's not a terminating decimal, so I'm going to leave it as it's written here. So we get an APY of 1 plus our annual rate, our periodic rate. So 1 plus 0.05 divided by 12. Again, if you've worked all this out, you can. Raised to the 12th power, and then minus 1, because the idea is this is always going to be a number bigger than 1, so you want to subtract 1 away to see the percentage growth. So when I do this guy, I get 0.05116. So then you're asked, well, which one is a larger yield? I mean, you can tell from looking at the two numbers. It's not a massive change. I mean, this is 5.116%. This is 5.127%. But in general, if you're doing, interest compounding, the more often you roll in the interest, it kind of stands to reason that has a chance to build more interest of its own. So the more compounding, the better in terms of yield. Okay. So we've talked about periodic compounding. We talked about continuous compounding. I'm going to look at one more example in our notes file before we call it a section here. So there's a problem at the very end that talks about a piece of property's value. So think of this as an investment in some sense, increasing 2.5% per year thanks to inflation. And when we first bought it, it was worth $40,000, or it says 8 years ago. Assume that's when we bought it. It's fine. And we want to know how much it's worth today. So for this final example, we're actually kind of doing a callback to the thing at the very beginning. We're just using like the plain old annual compounding setup. So in this last example, we have an initial investment. Technically, the investment is a value, but roll with it. R is 2.5%. So as a decimal, that's going to be 0.025 when we move the decimal place a couple of times. And again, R and I are the same here. If you like having I, that's fine, but yeah, it works out the same way. So we have 40 grand times 1 plus that periodic / annual. It, again, doesn't matter here. 1.025 raised to the 8th power, and our property is now worth $48,736.12. Okay, so compound interest. Done. All right. You will notice one thing as we roll through this chapter. There are a lot of formulas. So just about every chapter's content, except for that first one with simple interest, it really only has the one. We have multiple formulas kind of hitting you at once. So you will notice inside Moodle I have a formula sheet listed. It's going to collect all of these formulas. So don't we'll see them as they come, but in terms of a reference, that's conventionally something we assume you have with you when you're working on tests. We don't specify what the formula is for, but that way you're not having to commit all of the formulas to memory. So keep an eye out for that. We're going to take a look at a slightly different tack next time. What if instead of having a big lump sum, you can only make like small regular payments to build up interest? That's our next section.